They say that you'll lose your old friends once you start to do better in life. This could happen because you start to think you're better than them, or you want to do things they can't do, or even worse, you make them feel bad about their current position in life. But what if none of that is true and instead they cut you off? Despite never gloating or being condescending with your newfound success, you are cast out, cut off, and disowned by the people you most expect to be excited for you. Now, you're just left thinking, what did you do wrong? Well, I'm here to tell you something that very few people have the insight and courage to tell you. It's not you, it's them. While this isn't always accurate, sometimes you are being a bit of an a hole and you don't even know it. The friends who didn't make progress cut you off simply because you and them no longer share the same level in life. The old saying is that you are the average of the five people you spend the most time around. And that's true. But what isn't mentioned is how the other four people in the group will respond if you improve so much that you raise the average while the median stays the same. If you become successful and they don't follow suit, there's a good chance envy will kick in. And this envy will turn your supporters into haters and your friends into foes. Even if it doesn't get to the point that they become your actual ops, as the kids say, success has a way of bringing out the worst in other people. Now, I'm 39, and I've made great progress in my life in the past decade. I had a professional boxing career, started an amazing relationship, served in the army, graduated with a degree in physics, made a decent amount of money online, and even got a major book deal. Side note, more details are coming out about that, so make sure you subscribe and stay up to date. But my proudest accomplishment over the past 12 years, aside from my son, was getting sober. Now, I was an objectively horrible person when I was an alcoholic. I was relatively likable and charismatic, plus, I had the whole professional boxing thing going, and I was fun to drink with, but my priorities and behaviors were all out of whack. Anyone who decided they wanted nothing to do with me while I was drinking or right when I got sober would have been perfectly justified, and I couldn't blame them. In fact, many people who had known me from that time cut me out and had no interest in trying to rekindle a relationship once I got my act together. And that's perfectly reasonable and expected. But what happened 4 years into my sobriety was rather unexpected. In 6 months, 4 years into my sobriety, right after I had graduated with a degree in physics, four different people decided they could no longer be friends with me and they felt the need to tell me. Two cited personal views and the people I was following online. One got pissed because I said one day on Facebook that I hadn't had a bad day since I was sober. And the final one just outright blocked me on Facebook. Now, none of my views or the presentation of those views changed from when I was drinking. And now I was behaving like a stand up citizen, treating those people with respect that I should have been treating them with, but I had failed to while I was under the influence. So, what the hell gives? My boxing coach, Tom Yankello, linked to his excellent boxing channel in the description, always told me if you want a bunch of friends, be unsuccessful. When I first heard this from him, I thought it was just another pithy hot take based mostly on personal experiences and exaggerated to make a point. But then I started to have similar experiences as I got my life together by getting sober, going back to college, and building a beautiful relationship. I didn't lose most of my friends, and I wasn't emotionally bothered by the friends that I did lose. In fact, one of them was a bit of a pain in the ass anyway, but I was confused. Why cut the cord now and not when I was an alcoholic bum with no goals or direction in my life other than to knock guys out, get drunk, and chase women? What's going on? The Book of Samurai Wisdom, the Hagakure, makes a poignant observation about human nature. People will become your enemies if you become imminent too quickly in life, and you will be ineffectual. Rising slowly in the world, people will be your allies, and your happiness will be assured. The samurai were just servant soldiers who owned nothing and were prohibited from engaging in business or farming, but even they understood that when you start to do better, people start to feel worse, and that's when the hate comes. Centuries later, Evolutionary psychology would not only confirm this idea in a laboratory setting, but also offer an explanation for this behavior. Within that behavior, evolutionary psychology also offers us a way out of the trap of envy. A study published in Frontiers in Psychology titled The Evolutionary Psychology of Envy and Jealousy used surveys and brain scans to determine which situations made people jealous. The sample sizes were small, but the results were nonetheless fascinating. Let's review some of the questions here to see how you answer. Are you more envious of A, someone to you equal in talent and effort, but gets undeservedly promoted over you, or B, someone who is genuinely better than you who is rewarded and promoted? 11 out of 11 people chose B, the person who is genuinely better. But that was easy to predict, so let's try another. Imagine you are a first generation Indian immigrant to the United States. A, your neighbor is also an Indian immigrant of comparable talent who makes a lot more money. B, a Chinese immigrant making more money. Or C, an American local making more money. Who would you be most envious of? 11 out of 11 responders chose A. We'll do one more before we get to what's going on here. In this example, modify the sexes to whatever you are and you are attracted to. But as a man, I'm speaking through the man's perspective. Okay, so there's a woman you have your eye on, but you think she's out of your league. Another man walks in and she is instantly attracted to him. She walks off with him. This interloper is one of three people. A, he is stunningly handsome or wealthy and walks off with her. B, slightly better looking and handsome, or even identical to you in most respects. Or C, an ugly old poor tramp. Who would you be most jealous of? 8 out of the 11 people surveyed chose B. So let's take a short moment to define what envy is, to make sense of this. Envy and jealousy are not the same, although they are used interchangeably in common speech. While both are negative emotions, the big difference is that envy is directed at what others have, while jealousy worries about losing what you have. Envy is when you want what someone else already possesses. You can only be envious of someone you feel roughly equal to. You can see them as a little better or worse than you in whichever domain you envy, but different feelings arise if the gulf is too wide in either direction. When you see someone with similar outcomes as much better than you tend to feel respect or an admiration or outright indifference as there's no way you can compete. If you see someone as much worse than you with a better outcome, you can tell yourself that the opportunity missed was a mismatch for you, or there's something so wrong that you dodged the bullet by not getting what you want. Understanding that envy is only experienced when someone sees you or sees themselves as an equal explains the crux of all envy. When people see themselves like you, they can't accept that you have resources and opportunities that they do not have. So, in the case of those friends who decided to cut me off, I've come to realize that one of the main drivers was a rapid change in our relative positions. Now, I want to make something crystal clear here. I never once thought I was better than anyone. I'd imagine that if I had started to develop an attitude of arrogance, that I would have lost most of my friends, not just those friends that I did lose. And it's not like the friends who cut me off were losers either. They are still accomplished people in various fields of public service, science, and technology. However, I believe that the changes I made in my life and the manifestation of those changes made them feel like I was an equal who now had a life I didn't deserve or one they deserved more. There are some people listening to this who can relate, but others are likely skeptical. They're sitting there saying, well, Ed, how do you know you weren't just being an asshole? That's a fair point, and that could be it. But I came across the following story on Reddit a few years ago that's been living in my head rent free for quite a while. A woman joins a plus size and active fitness moms group. She loses 100 pounds with the group, and the other women in the group start treating her poorly and disinviting her from group activities. They start ghosting her until she finally asks what's going on, and she writes, most moms felt I was demotivating. The whole point of the group was to be active and lose weight. But when someone achieved that goal, they were no longer welcome. That person made a change from the baseline of the group, and instead of trying to catch up and using it as motivation to meet the goal, they collectively decided that she could no longer be part of the group. I'll link to the story in the description so you can read it for yourself. Through my observations, experiences, and anecdotes I've heard, here's what I think. It's not a guarantee that you'll lose all your friends as you level up, but there's a strong possibility that you'll lose some of them. You won't lose the friends from childhood who also did something meaningful with their lives. It doesn't have to be some goal or a level of grandiosity, but game recognizes and most importantly respects game. You won't have superficial things in common, but you'll have insights and mutual respect for one another. You also won't lose friends who admire you, respect you, and supported the ground when they got nothing but your company in return. I am close with every person who bought tickets to my boxing matches as a pro or an amateur. People who genuinely believe in you are happy when you make it. And you definitely won't lose friends if your success doesn't make you an asshole. Success may change you, but it should only be in the positive direction. I can give my friends genuine guidance now, something I couldn't before. But if I turned into a worse person, they would have stopped talking to and listening to me. However, you will lose friends who are just using you to make themselves feel better. A lot of people use someone else's shitty status in life to feel better about themselves by comparison. When you're no longer a mess, they'll make sure to remind you of where you came from and try to keep you down. You'll lose friends who are committed to mediocrity. Look, an unfortunate fact of life is that some people don't want to be shit. They may not have explicitly stated this, but it's reflected in their choices. There will come a point where you have nothing to talk about but a shared past you've moved beyond. You'll lose friends who are uncomfortable with your progress. Our story about the plus size moms group illustrates this idea perfectly. More often than not, the newly successful friend doesn't cut off his old buddies, they cut him off. When your life reminds people of how dissatisfied they are with theirs, don't expect to get many invites to hang out. This is why few things ruin friendships faster than one person rapidly improving their status in life position. Notice that I didn't say change. No one becomes envious of someone who loses their job or has a breakup, and people in those positions don't usually look at the people who aren't in a rough spot with an envious glance unless they've followed a remarkably similar track and just feel like they've gotten lucky. However, changing one person's status rapidly can trigger resentment, especially if the change in status results in significantly more resources and opportunities. It's not always envy and jealousy that causes friendships to fizzle out or, in the case of how it happened to me, abruptly end. But what about the times where you're the one who needs to cut off a friendship? I've seen a lot of lives ruined by prolonged association with the wrong people. To learn the signs that you need to end this friendship immediately, check out this video where I tell you the 4 signs that it's time to immediately end the friendship.